I stopped the car, dimmed the lights, and waited. I checked the schedule. Sure enough, the Monday night express should be here at 10:10 p.m. I checked my watch. In less than 5 minutes, the last phase of my plan was about to take place. 5 minutes to wait. 5 minutes to think it over. It was the culmination of a week's worth of planning, but the story began more than a year before that. The first time, I didn't think much about it. When you've been married for 22 years, you don't expect every time to be a marathon. Every once in a while, there comes a moment when performance is off the charts. All I could do was apologize. When the same thing happened again a week later, I started to worry. I hated to think that I was losing my ability to satisfy my wife, but to lose her, even temporarily, at that point was an absolute disaster. When the first of our children was born, our sex life went downhill. Erica always seemed too tired, or at least that was the excuse. I'd be surprised if we managed to do it once a month. It seemed like the baby was taking all her love, and there wasn't a trace of it left for me. I must have gotten over it at some point because 18 months later, my second son was born. As the boys got older and less demanding, I expected things to get better, but I was wrong. I found it very hard to accept rejection, so I avoided it by giving her time to sleep and going to bed myself. The realization that she didn't want me as much as I wanted her hurt me deeply. But there's more to marriage than fun, isn't there? I could make do with one time every couple weeks. The important thing was that we loved each other. At least I thought we did. Things started to change when my youngest son James went off to university. We started spending more time together, and Erica began to show more feelings. Once a fortnight was no longer enough, and soon we were doing it 2 or 3 times a week. Soon it became even more frequent. It was like we were newlyweds again. I loved it, not only the fun, but it was like we were reconnecting. I felt loved for the first time in years. I started to worry when she told me she still needed more. At my suggestion, she went to the doctor. When I got home that evening, she looked a little depressed. The doctor said she was beginning menopause. According to our doctor, it was her body's way of coping with the fact that she would soon be infertile. Her body was giving her the best chance to conceive before the egg stopped coming. He told her it would only last a year to 18 months and advised her to wait it out. Being a man, I didn't see this as a problem. "I'm going to be infertile," she whined. "It's like the end of something special." I had a vasectomy 15 years ago. I did it because you didn't like the pill or other contraception we tried. That's when baby making ended for me. I don't remember being so moody. You wouldn't be, would you? You're a man. It's not that important to you. Wait. What I'm saying is that being able to have children is very important to a man. It's part of the raison d'etre of his existence. That's why I was so reluctant to have a vasectomy. We decided, no. You decided you didn't want any more children. Now you're complaining because soon you won't be able to have any more children. That sounds like whining to me, because someone is taking away something you didn't want. I knew you wouldn't understand. I tried a different tack. "I'm sorry, Rick. I really am, but I can see the positives. No more period pain, no more premenstrual tension. That's probably something to look forward to." He said you'll only be like this for another year. That's comforting, surely. I guess so. I hadn't really thought about it, but it seemed like such a blow at the time. I sat down next to her and put my arm around her shoulders. "You'll be back to normal in a year. Doesn't that make you feel better?" "No, not really. I like feeling this way. I told you I need more than you can give. It's not your fault you can't be with me all day. I have to do it." "It sounds like you're barely in control and you're saying you don't want it to stop." I heard an owl's whoop, and it brought me back to the present. I looked at the clock. 10:15 p.m. Where the hell was that train? The express is never late. I looked back down, but there was no sign of it. The night around me was pitch black, without a single sign of a person. I felt cold. My left hand was especially cold. I could have started the engine and warmed up the car again, but I didn't want to draw attention to myself. I decided to just wait. The train might be a little late, but it would come. My worries would soon be over. My personal disaster occurred when I was trying to deal with Erica's uncontrollable libido. The first time I lost my sensitivity, so to speak, Erica understood everything. She said it was her fault I was so demanding. However, as it became a regular occurrence, she became increasingly annoyed. I planned to see a doctor, but before I made the appointment, Erica handed me a pack of Viagra. Erica, I need to talk to a doctor. These may not be the answer. Yes, but they can be. And what's wrong with trying it? If it doesn't help, go see a doctor. I didn't know enough about my problem to argue with her, and I saw the logic in her words. Our lovemaking already lacked spontaneity, and having to take the pill a half hour beforehand made it even worse. The good news was that they were working. I was even able to put up with the side effects. Every morning my face would burn, my nose would stuff up, and I would wake up with a hangover. But for a while, they helped. After a few weeks, the problem returned and I increased the dose. I got to the maximum dose, but the problem still returned. My coworkers at work knew something was wrong. You can't go to work hungover every day without people noticing a decrease in performance. I worked in the same office with the most gorgeous Cypriot woman named Eugenia Venesis. Eugenia was a beautiful woman, 5 feet tall, slender. We had been friends since I started college, and she had expressed more than once that she wanted to continue the relationship. One day she walked in and looked at me. "Kevin Johnson, when are you and I going to start having an affair?" Don't even joke about such things. Who said I was joking? I love Erica. I would never cheat on her. Besides, I can barely afford one woman, let alone two. I laughed, but there was definitely chemistry between us. At 32, Eugenia already had her own problems. Her ex-husband, Neville, had abused her and then tried to control her by threatening suicide. He was 6 feet 6 inches tall, a forward on the local rugby team, and a junior school principal. I had supported her through it all. Now she saw an opportunity to repay me in kind. "Trouble at home, Kev?" she asked. "No, what makes you say that?" "Come on. You usually hardly drink at all, and now you come here every day hungover. Something must be really bad for you to be hitting the bottle." "Look, Jean, I'm not hitting the bottle. It's the side effects of the drugs." "Then what drugs are you on?" I had to tell her the whole story. She was horrified. "She prescribed you Viagra? Have you been to a doctor? You could have a heart condition, Kevin. She could kill you. You need to stop taking them until you see a doctor." "I can stop. They don't help anymore." Eugenia hugged me tightly and made me promise to make sure I got checked out. Things were getting worse and worse at home. "I need a man, Kevin." I made a doctor's appointment the next day, but on Friday, the earliest I could make it was the following Tuesday. Erica wouldn't wait that long. That evening, I waited until she went to bed and soon followed her. I was surprised to see the light on in the other room. I was even more surprised when I walked past the door and saw Erica climbing into the empty bed. "What's going on? Why are you sleeping here? You can't do anything for me that I can't do myself. Honestly, you're just in the way. At least this way I don't have to put up with your snoring." I went to bed alone, feeling as low as it was even possible for a man to feel. I was a failure, unable to fulfill the most basic function of a man: lying in bed alone. I tried unsuccessfully to sleep. Around 3 in the morning, with her words still echoing in my head, I saw how it really was. She had told me she needed a man, and now she was pulling away from me. Was it possible that someone else was holding her, or maybe providing everything else that I couldn't? For most of the weekend, Erica stayed away from me. On Saturday, she went shopping all day, but didn't seem to buy much of anything. On Sunday, she went to church and didn't return until the evening. I should have talked to her, but I wasn't sure I wanted to know where she had been. Plus, I was very tired. I was sure she had found a replacement, and if I needed any more confirmation, it came Monday night when I found Erica packing her suitcase. "Where are you going, Rick?" "I'm sorry, Kevin, but things aren't working out anymore. I need more than you can give me, which isn't much. Don't do that, Erica. The problem is probably temporary. Things will be back to normal soon. I know it's temporary, but even when it's over, I'll still need the entertainment sometimes. I was talking about my problem, not yours. Many men suffer from erectile dysfunction at one time or another. It's often temporary. She stopped packing for a moment and hugged me. I hope so, Kevin, I really do. I know you love me, and I hate to do this to you, but he's younger and so solid. He takes me places you could never go. It's not your fault. I just need him now. Soon it will be over. My libido will calm down, or he'll get tired of me, and we can get back to normal. We're not in love or anything. She let go of me and went back to her stuff. I left her there and went downstairs. It took a little over half an hour before she appeared at the top of the stairs with 2 large suitcases, an overnight bag, and a large valise. She started down with the smallest bag and saw me watching her. It won't hurt you to help me. Erica, I will do nothing to help you leave this house. If you leave, it will be on your own. She walked down the stairs and carried the small bag to the car. When she returned, she stared at me, hoping I would weaken, but I didn't. She showed me how heavy the bags were and how difficult it was to carry them to the car. As she carried the last bag to the front door, she stopped and looked back at me. It doesn't have to be like this, you know. It's not like it's forever. Can't you just be glad I found someone to take a load off you? Please don't do this, Erica. We can get through this. We both know you're not doing this for me. If you stay, we still have a chance. But if you leave now, you're not coming back. Here, are you going to do this or am I? I held out my cell phone to her. She looked at the screen and saw her cell phone number pop up. What the hell are you talking about right now? Deleting you from my phone and from my life. Are you going to do it or am I? Oh, stop being so melodramatic, Kevin. She was already starting to yell. Of course I'll come back. I just need a real man right now, not a lame excuse. She stopped halfway through, realizing what she had said. I'm sorry, Kev. That's not what I meant. No, you finally said what you meant. And there was a tear in her eyes as she turned and walked away. I pressed a button on my phone and saw the number disappear. The door closed and I put the deadbolt on. That night I experienced the full range of emotions. At first I was angry. How could she do this to me? I had given her 20 of the best years of my life, and she would lash out at me at the first sign of trouble. For better or for worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, and of course, in denial of everything else. How could she be so presumptuous as to believe that I would sit around and wait for her to come back? I tried to think through what I would do. I would find her young boyfriend and destroy him. I would throw her out. All of this ran through my head, and I tried to convince myself that I would do all of this, but deep down I knew I wouldn't. As I tried to sleep, I became more and more depressed. Everything I could think of made me even more depressed. I must have been asleep because I think I was dreaming. I saw my students standing around laughing at poor old Kev, who couldn't get up in any way. I saw Erica and her lover giggling at how much she missed having a real man. I saw Erica explaining to my son how their lame father had let her down in her time of need. When morning came, I struggled to get out of bed. I made coffee, but I didn't feel like eating. I called the college and told them I was sick, and then I just stayed home. I wanted to cry, but the tears wouldn't come. By noon, I couldn't function normally anymore. I was brought back to the real world by the ringing of my phone, which I couldn't find in any way. After throwing all the pillows off the couch, I found Erica's phone. It was the first thing that spurred me on. I picked it up and made my way to the bathroom and lowered myself into the toilet. I knew I had to protect myself and my sons. I thought I could trust Erica, but I didn't even know who her lover was, so I needed to protect my finances. Obviously, I needed to go to the bank. The people at the bank were surprisingly helpful. On their advice, I opened a checking account in my name and deposited enough money to cover my expenses for a month. I then withdrew my name from the joint checking account we had always used. I emptied our savings account. Erica and her boyfriend were perfectly capable of having a good time, but they wouldn't do it with my money. Back home, I called the insurance company that handled my life insurance. It surprised me how easy it was to change the beneficiary from Erica to equal shares for my sons. The next day, I went back to work. Between lectures, I stopped by the HR department and arranged to have my paycheck deposited into my new account. I did the same thing with the college insurance as I had done with the life insurance policy. On Friday, I was able to meet with an attorney to change my will. That's what led me to waiting for the train on Monday night. I had no idea why I was so cold, and that damn heartburn was killing me. I had just checked my watch again when it happened. I heard a bell ring, red lights flashed, and the barrier came down behind me. I turned to look at the track to see the train coming around the corner. It would soon be over. My suffering was almost over. Something was wrong. The train was moving much slower than usual. Moreover, it seemed to be getting slower and slower. In the distance, but in my direction, 2 blue lights were flashing. The heartburn increased significantly, and I clutched at my chest. Suddenly, the flashing blue lights appeared in the rearview mirror. A police car had stopped on the other side of the barrier. I wanted to start the engine and drive away, but I couldn't get my hand off my chest. 2 policemen approached the car. One tapped on the window, but I didn't move. The heartburn was getting worse. The policeman asked if I was okay, but I could only stare at him. Unable to keep my eyes open, I slipped into unconsciousness as the policeman continued to talk. I remember nurses fussing around me, machines beeping, doctors poking and probing as I drifted in and out of consciousness. Soft lips caressed my forehead. A soft hand held me, but then I was gone again. Bright sunlight streamed through the blinds, beckoning me back to the world of the living. My eyelids fluttered open, and I looked up at the blurry world. I began to focus, and soon made out the television screen above my bed and the magnolia walls of the room. Someone was next to me, and I began to look around. The nurses were busy in their seats. I turned the other way, and there she was. "Welcome back," she said. "You had us worried for a while." I looked at her beautiful face. There was so much love in her big brown eyes. "Eugenia, what are you doing here?" "Well, someone had to be here. James is coming this weekend. Peter asked me to keep him posted, and he's coming as soon as he can. It's a long way from Durham." "But how did you find out?" "I got a call from the hospital. My number was the only female number on your phone, so they assumed I was your wife. When they called, I thought it was about my ex-husband. Once I knew it was you, I had to come over." "How long have I been here?" 2 days. I've been here between classes and lectures. The college has been very good about it. They can't wait for you to get back, and some of your students want to join you when you're in uniform." "Erica?" "I don't think she even knows. She hasn't called you and she's not home. I'm not trying to hide it from her, but I'm not going to look for her either. I think she's the reason you're here." She squeezed my hand and kissed me lightly on the lips. When she looked at the monitor screen, a smile spread across her face. "You must be getting better. Your heart rate went up 10 beats per minute when I did that. Now I need to get back to work for a while. I'll be back this afternoon and we'll see what the doctors say about you." Eugenia came back to me as the lead surgeon was making his rounds after lunch and began to tell me what he had done. "You're very lucky, Mr. Johnson. Lucky that someone found you when they did, and lucky that I had a particularly rough day and was still here when you were admitted. We performed emergency bypass surgery on you. You will be in a lot of pain for a while, but everything looks good. I'm surprised at how things turned out so well. You didn't have any symptoms? You must have been in a lot of pain." "Not really, Doc. I've been having a lot of indigestion lately, you know, heartburn, but I didn't think anything of it. At my age, you kind of expect it. I've developed shortness of breath and constant fatigue, but I put it down to a sedentary lifestyle." The doctor just shook his head. "You don't have any problems in the bedroom?" "Well, yes, but I used Viagra for that." "Viagra? Are you crazy? Who prescribed them for you?" Nobody. My wife bought them online. Damn internet pharmacies. If it were up to me, I'd shut them all down tomorrow. He turned to Eugenia. I hope you're satisfied, Mrs. Johnson. Your husband was very close to death. If he had only gone to the doctor, none of this would have happened. Wait a minute, Doc, I shouted back at him. That woman is not my wife. It's not her fault in any way. It's my fault and my wife's fault. But Eugenia urged me to go to the doctor. I was the one who saw no point in it. I know it's your duty to save me, but frankly, I wish you hadn't bothered. Eugenia's face immediately reflected anger. Kevin Johnson, how can you be so selfish? What about your family? Aren't they important at all? The boys will be upset for a while, but they'll get over it. I've provided for them. It's just money, Kevin. They don't need money, they need you. What about their children growing up without a grandfather? What about me? We all need you, Kevin, and don't you dare say he shouldn't have bothered. If you say anything like that again, you'll never see me again. She asked the doctor to speak to her alone. He looked at me for confirmation. Sure, Doc. Go ahead. You'll probably get more use out of her than I am right now, and as for my wife, you'll have to find her first. Eugenia put her hand on his arm and left with him for the room. When she returned, the anger in her eyes was still readable. She left you, didn't she? Is that really reason enough to want to die? I call that a reason to rejoice. You don't know why she left. I can't do it anymore, even with Viagra. I can't fulfill the basic functions of a man. I don't blame her for leaving. I do blame her. She left a sick man. Even if she didn't know about your heart condition, she was well aware of what ED was and what it was doing to you. All she did was escalate the situation and make it worse. And now she has gone out of her way to satisfy her selfish desires. Don't defend her to me, Kevin. I'm not ready to listen. Maybe you are, but the fact remains that I'm of no use to you now. You can't say that. You'll probably be fine when they deal with you. Most women need more than that anyway. She sat next to the bed and held my hand as she told me about everything that had happened at work. She was still there when the police arrived to talk to me. I made it clear that I wanted her to stay while I talked to them. They asked why I had stopped on the railroad tracks. I didn't know where I stopped the officer. Something went drastically wrong and I pulled over before I had an accident. I see, sir. So can you tell me why you turned off the lights? No, I can't. I guess it was habit, I guess. You know, you stop the car, turn off the engine, and turn off the headlights. You realize, of course, sir, that we have to report this to the licensing authority. You'll need a doctor's note before you can drive again. I completely understand, officer. I guess I was very lucky. Please pass on my thanks to the guys who found me. All right, sir, we will. Now we'd better let you get some rest. They turned to leave when I remembered that there was something I needed to know. Oh, officers, can you tell me what happened to my car? It's at the police station, sir. You'll need to pay the cost of recovery, and you can have it back. Now, if that's all, we'll leave you alone. I turned to look at Eugenia. Her hands covered her eyes, and I could hear her sobbing. She pulled away when I reached for her. You were really going to do it, weren't you? You stupid, stupid man. You sat around waiting to get hit by a speeding train. Why, Kevin? Why? Because of the boys. If it had been an accident, they would have gotten a much bigger insurance payout. You don't have to talk about it so mundanely. You tried to kill yourself. I'm sorry. I just can't deal with it. With tears in her eyes, she ran out of the room, narrowly missing the porters bringing in the dinner cart. That evening, Eugenia never returned. In fact, she did not return until the afternoon of the next day. When she arrived, she bestowed upon me a smile that could have melted a glacier. Don't think I've forgiven you for bringing yourself to this state without talking to me. I thought we were friends. I'm sorry, Jean. I really wasn't thinking straight at the time. You're my best friend. I should have talked to you. Is that all I am, Kevin? A friend? Right now, Jean, you're my best friend. I can't say any more than that. I'm just so confused that I'm still supposed to be a married man. Married? You still consider yourself married to her after she left you? After she made you feel worthless, she went off to find herself another guy? I'll tell you what, Kevin Johnson, there's a lot more to being a man than that. If she can't see that, then she doesn't deserve you. How long have you been here? 4 days and she hasn't even called you. She probably doesn't even know I'm here. Wake up and smell the coffee, Kevin. If she cared about you, she would have called your house, and when there was no answer, she would have called your cell phone. If she wasn't a selfish bitch, she'd know. I guess me flushing her cell phone down the toilet didn't help. Didn't help. I'm afraid it did help. It was the day after she left. It kept ringing, and when I found it under the cushions on the couch, I flushed it down the toilet. I think she must have come back looking for it. Someone was in the house cleaning last Wednesday. Tears came to her eyes, and when she started to laugh, they ran down her cheek. I'm sorry, Kevin, but that's so funny. If she's like me, her whole life will be on that phone. Appointments, birthdays, her phone book, everything will go down the toilet. You really are an evil person. She stood up and got ready to leave. I'm going home. The college will not tolerate a lack of training just because you were in the hospital. I'll be back tomorrow. Think about what I said. I watched her walk away in her high heels. The guy on the bed next to mine looked at me. If my wife wiggled her ass like that, I'd have a heart attack too, buddy. No wonder you're here. She's not my wife, just a friend. Pull the other leg, it's got bells on it. If she's just a friend, I'm a monkey's uncle. I've seen the way she looks at you. I wish she would look at me like that. Trust someone who's been there. She wants to be more than a friend, and if you don't do anything about it, you'll end up an even bigger fool than I thought. I thought about Eugenia. I definitely found her attractive, as most men did. I liked her as a person. She was fun, a little testy at times, but always funny. Was I in love with her? I didn't know. We only knew each other through work. There was a time when I helped her deal with her ex-husband, but that was 2 years ago. That was when I came closest to being a part of her personal life. Now it seemed she wanted to be a part of mine. The next day, my son Peter came over to see me. He looked more than upset. What's going on, Dad? Where's Mom? I got no answer when I called home and her cell phone went straight to voicemail. I don't know where she is. She didn't say where she was going. She just left. You mean she left you? What did you do? I told him pretty much the whole story, omitting the moment when I waited on the track for the express from Exeter. He looked shocked when it all came out. Damn it, Dad. I knew you and Mom were doing it in the bedroom. I heard your conversations at night during summer vacation. I was proud of you. I thought it was great that you still loved each other so much. Peter, things aren't always what they seem. We've been estranged for a long time. I think you boys were what really kept us together. Things have started to get better in the last few months, and it's brought us back together. I was hoping for a happy life together. It all went wrong when I started having problems in the bedroom. Apparently, it was related to the illness that got me here. That's when I realized she didn't need me. She needed any man who could do the job. It was fine the whole time I was in demand, but as soon as I stopped coping, she left. I don't believe that, Dad. Did you try to talk to her? If she knew you were sick, I'm sure she'd be here. I can't talk to her. I don't know where she is. She hasn't made contact with me. Cell phones aren't allowed here because they think they interfere with the monitors. I've turned mine on a couple times, but the only missed calls are from you and David. I gradually turned the conversation over to Erica. I told him as much as I could about my condition and assured him that I would be back to normal soon. Before he left, I made him promise not to tell Erica about my illness. No, Dad, she has a right to know. You can't expect me to keep it from her. Okay, son, I'll meet you halfway. I won't ask you to lie to her. If she asks you about me, you can tell her, but only if she asks. I suppose that's fair enough. I got the impression you don't think she'll ask. No, I don't. She can't ask without saying she doesn't live with me. I think if she was going to do that, she would have done it by now. Peter stayed with me until noon, When Eugenia came in, I introduced her as a coworker. Peter threw me a questioning look but said nothing until she left us alone. Be honest with me, Dad. This woman, Eugenia, did she have anything to do with Mom leaving? No, I said firmly. She's my friend and coworker, and she's been very supportive of me. She was the one who called you and James. When they brought me here, I wasn't in any condition to tell them anything. Her number was the only female number on my phone. The hospital thought she was my wife, so they called her. She's been handling everything for me ever since. She's helped me a lot. But if you think she came between me and your mother, you're wrong. Now try to behave like the gentleman I brought you up to be. Peter was a little warmer with Eugenia when she returned. Eugenia seemed pleased with the change in his attitude. He thanked her before leaving and she pecked him on the cheek. She stayed with me until the evening and then left to get ready for class. Over the next week, I underwent several tests and eventually all the monitoring equipment was removed. When the surgeon came to see me, I was a different person. I thanked him for the excellent job he had done in keeping me alive. Are you feeling more positive now, Mr. Johnson? I have some news that may help you feel even better. Our tests show that you have a testosterone deficiency. That's not uncommon in men your age. The good news is we can treat it easily. I can't promise anything, but combined with your heart condition, it explains your problems in the bedroom. If you fix it for me, I'll be even more grateful. I mentioned this to Eugenia when she came in that evening. She teased me, asking me if it was still working. She kept threatening to pull up the bedspread and take a look. When my morning glory returned, I kept her to myself. She still spent a couple hours a day with me, insisted on talking to the doctors, and made friends with all the nurses. I was a little surprised to find that I had to solve a problem for the head of the department. Eugenia was so popular with the nursing staff that they told her things they shouldn't have told anyone but relatives. Do you see my problem, Mr. Johnson? All the staff can see that she has your best interests at heart, but they are not supposed to tell her what they are doing without your consent. Of course, if you gave your permission, it would solve a lot of problems for me. First of all, sister, call me Kevin. Everyone else does. Now, do you need me to sign something, or will my verbal consent suffice? Oh no. There is no need for written consent if you agree to let her know everything. Well, sister, I would like you to treat Miss Venices the same way you treat my wife. Would that solve your problem? Yes, it would indeed, thank you. I was there for 10 days and the pain from the surgery began to go away. The doctor gave me seemingly good news, but left me with the problem. I was well enough to go home, as long as there was someone there to care for me. The problem was that I had no one. I didn't know whether I should lie and go home or tell the truth and stay in the hospital. When Eugenia came to see me in the evening, I discussed the matter with her. The doctor said I could go home tomorrow after my stitches are removed. The problem is that I have to tell them that someone will look after me. I don't like to lie. Then don't lie. But that means... She reached out and put a finger to my lips before asking a question many men would give their teeth to hear. Kevin, how would you feel about me moving in with you for a while? Jean, you know I'm not supposed to exert myself, right? She slapped my arm. Of course I know, that's why I asked. The doctor said you can go home, but only if there's someone there to look after you. I want to be that someone, if you'll let me. Can you handle all that healthy Mediterranean food and me waiting for you? I laughed. Well, if it means you get out of here, I'm sure I can handle it. Good, because if everything is okay, tomorrow the stitches will come out and I'll take you home. I reached out and took her hand. Jean, the other day you asked me if you were just a friend to me. You are a friend, a very good friend, but you mean more to me than that. Right now I'm still a little confused. The last 2 weeks have been pretty hard on me. I've been a husband for too long to think about relationships with other women. If you're willing to put up with the fact that this old man might fall in love with his nurse, I'd be very happy to have you as my nurse. She gave me a sly smirk. You're just trying to get me to wear a uniform. Give me the keys to the house. If you're going home tomorrow, I need to get ready and buy a nurse's uniform. She held out her hand as I rummaged through my locker and finally pulled out my house keys. Now you just be good and I'll pick you up tomorrow afternoon. The next morning I got out of bed and was fully dressed before breakfast. I shaved and generally tried to look as dressed up and trim as possible. The nurses were impressed and all left comments. Before the doctor's rounds, I had another electrocardiogram, which the doctor studied before turning his attention to me. He looked at my scar and listened to my chest before giving me the good news. So, Mr. Johnson, are we still positive? Absolutely, Doc. I'm looking forward to coming home. I'm told there's someone at home to look after you, so I think we can discharge you today. I should instill in you that you should take it easy for the next 2 weeks. After that, we'll start doing some gentle exercises, and then we'll move on to a fitness regimen in a couple months. He shook my hand and wished me well. Come on, Mr. Johnson, the nurse is here to take you home. The ride home was amusing, to say the least. We sat on the couch and watched TV. When it was time to go to bed, she helped me up the stairs. When we got to my bedroom, she said, "Good night." Oh, and Jean, thank you for being so... like this. Go to bed, Mr. Johnson, before the nurse decides she knows better. As the sun began to creep into my bedroom, I felt some movement on the bed next to me. I opened my eyes, looked up, and saw a woman sitting on the bed next to me. When I was fully awake, I realized that Eugenia was sitting next to me. Good morning, sleepyhead. Time to wake up and smell the coffee. To make it easier, I made it, so sit down and enjoy it. I rose to a sitting position and took the cup of coffee she offered. One of the things I really missed in the hospital was a good cup of coffee. This is actually really good. I was half expecting Greek coffee, full of sugar and dirt on the bottom. I've worked with you for 6 years now. I think I know what kind of coffee you like. She set her cup down and turned to me. She ran her finger over the scar. It's healing nicely, but it still looks a little angry. After breakfast, she gave me a quick kiss. In the morning, I typed up my email and was about to make lunch when the doorbell rang. I opened the door and saw Alan and Daniel, 2 of my best students, standing on the doorstep holding 2 pizza boxes. "Pizza delivery!" they shouted as I looked at them in surprise. "Come on, Kev. Let's go make some coffee and get some lunch." I refilled the coffee maker, turned it on, and all 3 of us sat around the table eating slices of pizza. "Eugenia gave us instructions for you not to do anything," said Daniel to me. "Yeah, you've been hiding things from us, Kev," joined in Alan. "You 2 have something going on, don't you?" "Come on, guys. A gentleman doesn't talk about things like that." "Then we'll take that as a yes." Alan laughed. "Hey, that's one of your professors you're talking about. Show some respect." "Yes, but that doesn't stop her from being beautiful, does it?" I changed the subject and asked them who had taken over my classes and inquired how they were doing. They weren't impressed. The college had hired a temporary replacement, and the students were unhappy with his level of expertise. He didn't seem to care about keeping up with new developments and only knew text-based solutions to any problems. My more advanced students were used to thinking for themselves. We had a saying, "The right solution is the one that works." I made a mental note to contact the department chair and suggest that he assign and review the assignments. The idea that my students could be penalized for knowing too much was unacceptable to me. Kev," Daniel said, "I don't suppose you're going to let us drop in here for informal classes from time to time. We'll bring lunch and grab a beer." "I don't see why not, Dan. It would be the perfect job. I'll only teach students who really want to learn, and they come to me on their own. What could possibly be wrong with that?" "Well, the fact that I don't get paid is a bit of a hindrance." "Oh, but it does. I'm on sick leave, so I'm paid to the fullest." "Is it okay if we bring a few more people with us next time?" That's how I came to be in charge of the unofficial college application. Within 2 weeks, I was busy 3 days a week. Eugenia wasn't too pleased when the girls in the IT class started coming to me. Being at home all day, I didn't use my cell phone too much, so I left it turned off. At Gina's suggestion, I let the answering machine answer my home calls. She didn't want me to rush to the phone and discover it was a call from the marketing department. Peter and James knew that as soon as they started talking, I would answer. However, one or two of the callers were just grumbling in frustration or trying to talk through the machine. The evening after the boys arrived, she cooked me a wonderful carbonara, and after dinner we cuddled on the couch. When I went to bed, she walked me to the bedroom door. The temptation was too great for me. Would you like to come over to my place tonight? Oh, Kevin, you say the most romantic things. I take that to mean no. Are you kidding? I've been wanting an invitation like this for a long time. She took my hand and led me to my room. It doesn't take much imagination to figure out what happened later. The next morning, I was awakened by the sound of a knife against a cutting board coming from the kitchen. Soon, Eugenia appeared in front of me with 2 cups of coffee in her hands. She sat down next to me. I've liked you since we started working together. I fell in love with you when you came with me to move all my stuff out of the house we shared with Neville. I thought I was going to die when he started threatening you, but you came between us and told him to act his age and not his shoe size. He was much bigger than you and very strong, but you stood up to him and he backed down. He didn't dare hit me. He would have lost his job and never been able to work in education again if he had been convicted of assault. Yet most men would have backed down, but not you. You ignored all the taunts and accusations and told him to speak up if we took something we weren't entitled to. Yes, but weren't you surprised when he pointed at you and said, She is my wife. You have no right to take her." That's what struck me when I heard your answer. My heart rose in my chest and I realized I wanted you. I don't remember that moment. What was so special about what I said? You just stopped, looked him straight in the eye and said, "No, she was your wife, but she is no longer. If you really think of a wife as a thing, like a car or a coffee table, then you shouldn't have gotten married." I knew right away that you were exactly the man I needed. Smart, kind, loyal, brave, more than handsome, and respectful of a woman for her virtues. You're a little overweight, but I can fix that. The only drawback was that you were already married. We went down to breakfast and I found out what this was all about. Eugenia had made a fresh fruit salad with Greek yogurt. I looked at it with some surprise. She realized I wasn't used to starting the day this way. I told you this was going to be a healthy meal now. Don't worry, eggs and bacon won't be completely off the menu, but we'll work on changing your diet. That's fine with me, but don't expect me to start liking cornflakes. Then write me a list of what you don't like, and I'll plan meals with that in mind. We sat and enjoyed our breakfast. When I added a slice of toast, it turned out really good. As we drank our coffee, I went back to the conversation we had in bed. So if Erica hadn't left me, would you still be waiting? I guess so. I knew things weren't okay at home. You never said anything, but all those conversations we had told me that you weren't getting what you wanted out of your marriage. It was only a matter of time before the cracks spread in all directions. And all this time I had no idea. Why would you? I didn't run after you or do anything like that. She stood up and put the dishes away. Well, one of us has to go to work, so I better get going. I reached out and took her hand and kissed it. Thank you, Jean. Thank you for everything. She smiled at me, kissed me, and left. And when it was time to go back for her checkup, she took the day off and came with me. I went through a battery of tests, including the mandatory EKG. They put me on the treadmill for 10 minutes and then ran all the tests again. And all this before I even met with a counselor. When I did get to see him, he held out his hand to me and I shook it. Everything going well, Mr. Johnson? Yes, thank you, Doc. And no more pain? No, everything's great. I feel better than I have in a long time. What about the other little problem? Any improvement? The problems in the bedroom seem to be behind me. Well, I'm very glad to hear that. Your test results look very encouraging. We can leave it another 2 months before I see you again. In the meantime, I've made an appointment for you to see a physical therapist. They will work out an exercise regimen for you. We need to make sure we don't see you again for a while. I was relieved when the physiotherapists didn't advise me to go to the gym. I couldn't stand all those competitive muscle flexing exercises. A rather nice lady suggested I start with brisk walking every day. Bicycling and swimming were also recommended. I could see that Eugenia was itching to ask a question. When she did ask it, she managed to confuse both me and the physical therapist. "What about sex?" she asked. The poor girl's face turned bright red and she coughed. "Well, it's good exercise," she said, regaining her composure. "As long as it gets your heart going for 5 minutes or more. Leave it to me. I'll make his heart work." The girl smiled at her. "Yes, I'm sure of it." On the way out of the hospital, Eugenia put her arm around my waist and pulled me to her. "See," she said, "I'm going to be so good for you." The weeks that followed my trip to the hospital were some of the happiest of my life. Eugenia picked up my car from the police station, and after receiving a letter from my doctor, I got my license back. Getting my car back was more of a consolation, as I started leaving it in the garage much more often than before. I'm not sure exactly when it happened, but within a few weeks I started looking at my watch, waiting for Eugenia to come home. In the evenings, we would go out for a walk instead of sitting in front of the TV. On Saturday mornings, we went swimming. It was one of the exercises I always enjoyed. Erica always hated swimming. She was afraid her head would go under the water. I stopped going because, as with many things, it's not much fun alone. Eugenia was the complete opposite. She wasn't afraid of anything. She loved being in the water and couldn't wait to splash me when I came up. "See, I told you I would make you love me." She was right. She had really gotten through to me. I realized why I couldn't wait for her to come home. I felt better than I had in years. Her smile warmed me. It had been so long that I had forgotten what it was to be in love. But in the pool that Saturday morning, I realized that I was. With my new love, my personal college to keep me busy, and a new level of personal fitness, I was on top of the world. The boys would soon be coming home for the summer, and I was busy getting the house ready for their arrival. Friday afternoon, I was busy decorating. I had just finished applying gloss paint to the wood trim when I heard someone trying to open the front door. I got up, dipped my brush in white spirit, and went back to the door. She started cursing when I opened the door. "Hey, Rick, what brings you here?" "I live here, but what are you doing home?" "I'm on sick leave, and to correct your statement. No, you don't live here. You used to live here before. You left, remember? In search of greener pastures or harder penises, didn't you? If you're going to be rude, I'll come back later and let you in." "You won't do that with those keys. I changed the locks." "You did what? Why did you do that?" "I told you I'd be back. And I told you that if you walked out the door, you wouldn't come back. I think that was easy enough to understand." "Kevin, please, can we go inside and talk about this?" I opened the door wide and she picked up her suitcase. I started to close the door. "The suitcase will stay there. You can go in, but you can't go back in." As she walked in, tears came to her eyes. We walked to the dining room and I motioned for her to sit down. When I sat down, the coffee maker was already gurgling. "So, Erica, what did you want?" "I came home. The doctor was right. My libido is starting to decline, and now I can cope." "That should be comforting to whoever you get together with." Tears began to flow and black mascara ran down her cheeks. I realized for the first time that she had put a lot of effort into looking good for this meeting. I poured coffee, brought her a cup, and sat down across from her again. She wiped her eyes with a napkin. "Why are you doing this, Kevin? It's not like you. I hurt you, and I deeply regret it. If I had reasoned straight, I would never have done it, but my hormones were in control. I love you. I know you love me. Can't we just work on putting this behind us?" "You're wrong on both counts. You don't love me. Maybe you did once, but not for long. As for my love for you, I loved you, I really did." I unbuttoned my shirt, exposing the scar on my chest. "They opened my heart, and all my love for you poured out. She brought her hand up to her mouth. What happened? Why didn't anyone tell me about this? I told you what happened. They opened my heart, brought me back from the brink. I'm sure the hospital wanted to call you, but we had no idea where you were. If you had tried to call here, I would have told you. Face it, Rick, you were too busy to worry about me. No, it wasn't like that. I lost my cell phone, and when I bought another, all I had was this damn machine. Your cell phone is always off, and the girl at the college switchboard just says she won't answer your number. And here I thought you were just distracted by some idiot. Stop it, Kevin. You talk so dirty. You could have at least told the boys. You don't think they had a right to know you were sick, do you? Eugenia told them. Peter even came to visit me in the hospital. So why didn't they tell me? I would have come if I had known. I asked them not to tell you unless you asked about me. I guess you never told me. I couldn't. I didn't want them to know what I did. Well, they know I told Peter everything and James called me to ask about it. I don't believe you. I don't believe you told them everything. What about your little problem? Did you tell them about it? I told them everything, even that I was a lame excuse for a man. No, they'll hate me. How will I be able to face them when they get home? That won't be a problem. You won't be here. I heard the sound of a key in the lock, got up, and walked out into the hallway. The door opened and Eugenia walked in. When she saw me standing at the door to the dining room, she ran down the hallway, jumped up, and wrapped her legs and arms around my neck. I missed you. Did you miss me? Of course, but we have to behave. We have a guest. She looked across the dining room. It's not a guest. It's your wife. Erica sat with her mouth open, barely containing her amazement. Eugenia swung her legs off the bed and stood with her arms around me as Erica regained her composure. What the hell is she doing here and why does she have a key? She lives here, which I can't say about you. Erica wasn't about to give up. She looked Eugenia straight in the eye as she fired the first volley. Thanks for looking after him, dear, but you can go home now. I'll take it from here. You see, Kevin has a little problem that he obviously hasn't told you about. You'd better get back to your boyfriend. I'm sure he can take much better care of you than Kevin can. I think Kevin has everything I need. Thank you. Erica was taken aback for the second time. Eugenia only smiled at her. Well, I guess some girls have it and some don't. I'm going upstairs to change. I'll leave you to deal with everything here. With those words, Eugenia turned and ran up the stairs. A surprised expression appeared on Erica's face. Are you fully recovered now? I'm recovering, but things are better in the pants department than I can remember. So, as you can see, you don't belong here. But I love you, Kevin. Can't we go back to the way things were? I can be a better wife, I really can. It's too late for that, Rick. You couldn't love me and do what you did. Why don't you go back to Mr. Stiffdick and let him make you happy? This set off another fit of crying. This time, very deep sobs and a mass of tears. I brought her some tissues, and as the sobs subsided, she wiped her eyes. So what happened? I asked. Surely Stiffdick will be glad to have his buddy back. Erica sat up, shaking her head. I can't come back. His wife is coming home. So he's a married man. What made you do it, Rick? What made you sleep with a married man while his wife is away? She started sobbing again. I didn't know. He told me she left him, but now I know she's in New York for an internship. She's coming home on Wednesday. I was so stupid, and now I've lost everything. Not quite everything. You seem to have a secret bank account. Oh yes, I discovered it when I was separating our finances. There was £5,000 in there, and only you can touch it. Today had been a day of surprises for Erica. She had no idea I had split our finances, much less discovered her stash. I've been saving money for our 25th anniversary. I wanted to take you away for the holiday of a lifetime. Well, that's never going to happen now, so maybe you should use some of that money as a deposit on an apartment. You have a good job, so you shouldn't have any trouble finding a place to live. Now that's another problem. I lost my job. One of the trustees came and caught us doing it in my office. They considered it a serious breach of discipline, and I was fired. The fact that Ron was one of our parents made it worse. My God, Rick, it's us men who have to think with our little heads. So, let me get this straight. You lost your job, Stiff Dick kicked you out, and you decided to come back to me. Hey, no, I was planning on coming back to be here for the boys when they came home. Well, that's not going to happen now. Why? Don't do this to me, Kevin. They are my boys. You can't forbid me from seeing them. I'm not trying to forbid you from seeing them. You can see them anytime you want, just not here. There's no place for you here. You made your choice, Rick, and you ran away to be with Stiff Dick. But this is my home, too. You can't kick me out. I didn't kick you out. You left of your own free will. There's just no room for you here now, or at least there won't be in a week. But I have nowhere to go. I thought for a moment. I couldn't really throw her out on the street, could I? How could I stand up to James and Peter if I did that? Obviously, I had to do something. I'll tell you, Rick, you can stay for 6 days. You can sleep in Peter's room. In those 6 days, you'll find somewhere to live. And move out. Once you have a place to live, the boys can come to you whenever they want. A look of relief appeared on her face, and I could even see the beginnings of a smile. It disappeared with my next sentence. Under no circumstances should I give you the keys. If you leave and there's no one here when you get back, you'll have to wait for our return. Is that all right with you? I guess it will be. Okay, how much for dinner? I told her what I'd offered Erica, but I needn't have bothered. She'd pretty much heard everything already. She set to work making a delicious moussaka. Even Erica complimented her on her cooking. After dinner, I took Erica's bag to Peter's room and left her to unpack. When our normal routine broke, Eugenia and I settled down on the couch and watched TV. Erica went downstairs, but after a while decided to go to her room. As soon as she left, Eugenia whispered in my ear, "I have something special for tonight." And what would that be? I realized, took her hand and led her into the bedroom. There we got down to it, and after a while we fell asleep. Waking up the next morning, I went to the bathroom. As soon as I got out of the shower, there were raised voices coming from the kitchen. I opened the bathroom door to see what they were talking about. It wasn't clear enough to see what was being talked about, so I moved to the top of the stairs. "You're wasting your time," Erica said. "He loves me. He's invested 20 years in me, and we have 2 sons. He can't turn his back on that." "Why not? I mean, you loved him." "Oh," said I to myself on hearing this. Eugenia really knew how to hit the sorest spot. It was only an outburst. He'll forgive me eventually, and when he does, you'll be history. What makes you think he'll be able to forgive you? You turned your back on him when he needed you most. He'll forgive me because he loves me. I had already reached the end of the stairs when I heard a slap. As I, still drenched in sweat, walked to the kitchen, Erica jumped out of there. I grabbed her arm. "What the hell is going on?" She didn't say anything, just yanked her arm out and ran up the stairs. I walked into the kitchen and saw Eugenia rubbing her cheek. When she came over to me, her tears came to her eyes. "Is it true what she said? Will you forgive her and take her back?" Yes and no. What kind of answer is that? I pulled her against me, causing her robe to become wet. I lifted her chin and kissed her gently. I'm really angry with her right now, but I know it will pass with time. So yes, I can forgive her. Hate is such a negative emotion. However, don't confuse forgiveness with forgetting. I will never forget what she did, which means there is no going back. I gave her a week, and that's all she'll get. If you want eggs and bacon, you're welcome. Eugenia and I will take fruit, yogurt, and toast. She paused and put the skillet away. I can't believe it. You've never turned down a fried breakfast before. Yeah, but a lot has changed. I like the idea of staying alive better. Look, I'm sorry about earlier. I was a little annoyed after your performance last night. You didn't have to rub my nose in it. I really don't know what you mean. Of course you do. All that yelling last night. You're not telling me that's normal. Eugenia is quite loud, but maybe last night she screamed a little louder than usual, but it doesn't matter. Your behavior this morning was outrageous, and I will not tolerate it. No matter how loud she is, if you raise your hand at her one more time, your feet will not touch the ground on your way out that door. As long as you live in this house, you will treat her with respect. She's no match for you, Kevin. How old is she? 30? She'll want a family, and you can't give her that. She knows everything, and if we decide we want a family, I'll get a vasectomy. Eugenia returned, and we had a very relaxed breakfast, after which I reminded Erica that she needed to get busy finding a house. You can't do that, Kevin. I own this house as much as you do. You can't kick me out. You want half the house? Divorce me. That's not a problem. I had a financial audit done as soon as I got out of the hospital. That's how I found out about your secret account. You can get half of what we were worth at the time. All you have to do is divorce me. I can't do that. I don't believe in divorce. Till death do us part, that's what we promised. You also promised to keep yourself only for me. You didn't have much of a problem with that. If you want a divorce, there should be a divorce. I certainly won't pay for it. You'll have to go against your so-called principles. Please don't do this to me, Kevin. I've already made up my mind. If you want your half, divorce me. In the meantime, you need somewhere to live. Of course, she didn't just go and find an apartment. It got to Wednesday and she still hadn't found anything. All the offers were too expensive, too far out of town, or just not a good fit. She was stalling, trying to find a reason to live in a house when the boys came home. I wasn't surprised, and Wednesday afternoon we looked at an apartment that definitely fit in her price range. She told me she liked it, but she couldn't afford to put down a deposit and furnish the apartment. I kept it from her that it was Eugenia's apartment that we had decided to rent specifically. As soon as Erica came up with reasons to say no, I changed the game. I'd call Eugenia and pretend to negotiate. Eventually, we even dropped off some of the furniture, including Eugenia's bed. Thursday night, we moved Erica's stuff into Eugenia's old apartment. Friday afternoon, Peter arrived home first. He gave me a hug as he walked through the door and then gave Eugenia a peck on the cheek. Did you hear anything about Mom? Yeah, she slept in your room until yesterday afternoon. She came home? After what she did to you, she just came back? Yeah, and expected me to act like nothing happened. She didn't expect me to tell you. She expected me to act like everything was normal. You know, Dad, I find it hard to believe she's the same woman who raised me. How could she have changed so much? She hasn't changed as far as you're concerned. Her world still revolves around you and James. I'm the one she has a problem with. To be honest, my wants and needs haven't mattered to her for years. I didn't notice. I started out giving in to her because I loved her so much. Later on, I did it to provide myself with a peaceful life. I didn't want you to grow up fighting with your parents, so I let things go, letting her act in her own way. I realize now that I was slowly destroying what little respect she had for me. Peter hugged me again. There were tears in his eyes. I'm so proud of you, Dad. Both of us, James and I. But you did everything wrong. We saw what was happening. We wanted you to persevere and get your way. But you never did. I was addicted. I loved her, and you boys so much I would have given anything to keep what I had. Like an addict, I had to hit rock bottom to force myself to change. I certainly reached it, and once there, the only way back was without your mother. James came home the next day. I was expecting a phone call asking me to pick him up from the station. This time, he got a lift from a pretty girl in an old Vauxhall Nova. I opened the door and gave him a hug. His first words surprised me. Eugenia came out to greet him. She stood on tiptoe and just had time to kiss his cheek. Hi, James. It's so nice to finally meet you. James took a step back from her. So you must be the Greek whore my mom told me about. James, I shouted. You seem to have forgotten your manners. I suggest you go back and get some. He turned to me and a smile slowly spread across his face. Sorry, Dad. Mom called me last night and told me you kicked her out and replaced her with some Greek whore. According to her, your heart attack is something and nothing. Definitely not something to worry about. I couldn't resist making a little fun of it. He put his arm around Eugenia and kissed her cheek. Hello, Eugenia. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. Thank you so much for taking care of my father. He looked back at me and studied my face. That wasn't funny, was it? I'm sorry, Dad. No. James, it wasn't funny, but it does give me some thoughts. I want you both to go and see your mother. You may not agree with what she's done lately, but she's still your mother. For 20 years, she's done a damn good job of raising you. They spent the first week with me before starting summer work. I know they visited their mother at least once. Once they started work, I didn't see them much. More often than not, they were off somewhere, but they assured me that they saw Erica once a week. Eugenia and I took a little vacation. 3 weeks in Cyprus, of course. I met the whole family, and I mean the whole family, uncles and aunts, grandparents, cousins and cousins. They threw 2 parties in our honor, and I had to learn how to dance. Eugenia had a great time once she managed to stop the pestering from her relatives about my marriage. At the farewell party, her father and brother took me aside. Both men clapped me on the back, but the sudden change in conversation caught me off guard. I love you, Kevin, her father told me. I love you like you're my own son. Giannis, he loves you like a brother. My Eugenia, she loves you with a passion that you Brits will never understand. But I tell you this, if you hurt my girl, I will kill you. That's right, Giannis, isn't it? Giannis nodded his head. Oh yes, we will kill you, but not now. What about Neville? I asked. He hurt her. I'll tell you this, if he ever comes to Cyprus, we'll kill him, her father said. My brother works in airport security. If he comes here, I will be informed. Giannis agreed. If we go to England, we'll find him and kill him. He clapped me on the back again. We don't talk about it anymore. Now we dance. Go, go. The bouzouki band started playing a tune I only know as Zorba in Greek, and we went back to the dance floor. With our arms around each other's shoulders, we danced. One by one, all the other men joined us. That night, as I went to bed, I mentioned Eugenia's threats. She laughed. He doesn't really mean he's going to kill you. That's a figure of speech we have. When a Cypriot says he's going to kill you, it means he's very angry with you. If everyone who said that killed someone, we wouldn't have anyone left alive. That comforted me a little, but I was still relieved when we got on the plane and flew home. When classes began in September, the doctors declared me fit for work. Eugenia and I appearing together was perplexing, but other than that, nothing much had changed. In October, Peter and James returned to the university. The house became quiet except for the noise of our lovemaking. Throughout the summer vacation, Erica had barely left my mind, so I was surprised when she called me. What's the problem, Erica? I asked. No problem. I wanted to talk to you for a while. I found a job. That's good news. What are you going to do? The same thing I used to do, run a daycare center. So what do you need from me? Do you need a recommendation or something else? No, Kevin, nothing like that. The job in Taunton. I'm going to move in with my sister until I get back on my feet. I was wondering if you could give me a ride to the station. Are you sure you don't want to take a cab? I'll pay if you're a little short. No. Really, I'd like you to drive me if you can. It will give us a chance to talk one last time. All right. When? I can Tuesday morning or Thursday afternoon. Okay, I'll do Tuesday morning. Thanks, Kevin. Eugenia was sure that Erica had an ulterior motive. I wanted her out of my life. I hoped she wanted to talk about the divorce, but maybe that was too much to hope for. The weekend flew by, and in the blink of an eye, it was Tuesday morning, and I was already parked outside Erica's apartment. She came out to meet me and invited me to come in for a cup of coffee. We sat for a while before she started talking. I've been a selfish bitch, haven't I? You're not going to get a rebuttal from me about that. It's all the same, Kevin. Don't sugarcoat the situation. Just tell me straight. Well, you did ask. Yes, I did. Tell me, Kevin, are you happy? Does she make you happy? Yes, she really cares about what I want. We don't fight for control all the time. Is that how you envisioned our relationship? Not at the time, no, but lying in the hospital, I had a lot of time to think about it, so yes, that's how I see it now. Why? Is it not like that? I didn't understand at the time, but I do now. I've always loved you, Kev, but somewhere along the line I lost respect for you. Every time there was a conflict, you backed down. I complained about your music, you stopped playing it. I refused to go to bike hangouts with you, you stopped going. Come on, Rick, you didn't just complain about my music. You walked into the room and turned it off. When I argued about it, you'd start, "What's that awful noise? The neighbors will think you're killing me." You jumped all over me. I didn't want the boys to see us fighting, so I gave up. It didn't seem like such a big deal. When it comes to bike racing, you realize it was more than just your reluctance to ride. I remember all the emotional blackmail, the stories about how boys need shoes, while I was having fun attending race meetings. You told me I was always too busy to spend time at home, but could carve out a weekend to go to the races. I worked long hours to give you what you said you needed. I stopped going to races because, honestly, the choice was between that and giving up my family, and I couldn't bear the thought of losing my boys. Looking back, I wish I had given up something you didn't like. Along with everything I gave up, a piece of Kevin Johnson died. I wasn't me anymore. I was just your husband who did whatever you wanted. I actually liked being at work. At least there I felt important. My coworkers respected me. My students looked up to me, and 20-something girls flirted with me. At home, I was completely under your control, but that didn't change anything. In fact, it got worse, even when you kept getting your way. I watched the tears roll down her face. She was silent for a while. Then she wiped her eyes and looked at me. I'm sorry, Kevin. I can't tell you why I did what I did. Probably because of Mom and Dad. They've always had a tumultuous relationship. I guess I thought it was normal. My mom would provoke my dad. They'd fight and then make up a couple days later. When I provoked you, you just kept quiet and kept it to yourself. I started to see you as some kind of weakling. Even my father fought back more often than you did. As I recall, he abandoned your mother when you were 12. Didn't that teach you anything? If that's your idea of what marriage should be, I wish you had told me that from the beginning. We could have both avoided a lot of heartache. I'll tell you, Rick, that the moment your attraction went crazy, I was ready to give up everything. If we made love once a month, that would be unusual, and that's only if you had a drink or two. You didn't even like me touching you. Do you have any idea what constant rejection does to a man? We were so far apart, and I could see it was getting worse, but I supported you. I thought that when we were alone, things would either get better or we'd have to break up. That all changed when you suddenly became affectionate again. I really thought there was hope for us. I soon found out it was all about you again. You wanted entertainment, and I was just the most convenient source. She sobbed again, and I sat in silence as she picked herself up again. Eventually, she managed to get a few words out. I'm sorry, Kevin. I really am. I didn't realize how bad it was until I remembered how I treated you. When things started going wrong for you, I should have made sure you saw a doctor. I was too consumed with my own needs to realize what that meant for you. I was looking for instant relief and gave you Viagra. My God, I could have killed you. I don't blame you for being mad at me. The things I did and said to you were unforgivable. I don't know what came over me. I really thought I could do whatever I wanted, and you would just accept it. I looked at my watch. What time is your train? Shouldn't we be moving out? The express from Exeter arrives at the station at 11:15. I need to be there by then. I'll get my bag and we'll be on our way. I carried her bag to the car. She seemed a little light to me. As I passed her car, another question visited me. Why are you taking the train? Why don't you drive and take all your stuff with you? You know I don't like traveling long distances. Besides, it's almost impossible to park in Taunton, and Julie's house is a stone's throw from the daycare center. I've offered the car to James if he wants it. If not, perhaps you can sell it for me." I nodded in agreement and got in the car. As Erica got in, she smiled at me with such a warm and loving smile that I recoiled a little. "I didn't need to ask. I can see that she makes you happy. You have that sparkle again. That sparkle in your eyes that you had when I fell in love with you. I wondered what happened to her. I guess over the years I must have just etched it out of you. I'm glad she's back." The rush hour traffic had thinned considerably, and I got her to the station in no time. I found a spot in a short-term parking lot, and we sat in the car just looking at each other. "It's really too late for us, isn't it, Kevin?" "Yeah, you've gone too far this time. There's no going back. Why don't you just divorce me and be done with it?" She stroked my cheek. "I can't do that, Kevin, my love. Until death do us part, I made a vow and I'm not going to break it again. I will always be your wife, even if you divorce me." I shook my head, getting out of the car and grabbing her bag. We walked hand in hand into the station building and onto the platform. "There's no need to wait. You need to get back to work." I nodded and turned to leave, but she grabbed my arm. "Tell the boys I love them." "Tell them yourself Taunton isn't that far away." "Stop pretending, Kevin. They only come to me because you send them." "Give them time. They'll come around." She reached up to my neck, pulled my head down, and kissed me with a passion I didn't realize I had. When we broke the kiss, she whispered, "I love you, Kevin Johnson, and I'm going to let you go. Now get out before I burst into tears." There was water in my eyes as I turned and walked away. You can't part with 20 years without sadness. I got in my car, and without thinking, I started the engine and drove off. Just as I parked in the college parking lot, the phone rang. It was Eugenia, and I answered it immediately. "Did she leave?" "I think so. I left her on the platform waiting for the express to exit her. She should be on her way by now." "I doubt it. The express doesn't stop at Braunston Junction and go to Taunton. Are you sure that's the train she was taking?" "Well, she said it was the one she was waiting for." "Oh my God." "What is it, Kevin? What's wrong?" "I can't talk right now, Jean. I have to get back to the station." I dropped the phone, started the car, and drove out of the parking lot with a squeal of tires. I'm surprised I didn't get arrested for driving on my way back to the station. I was breaking the speed limit and running red lights, anything to get to the station faster. As soon as I pulled up to the entrance, I realized I was too late. There were police cars and an ambulance in front of the entrance. I left the car in the parking lot and ran to the entrance. The mesh gate was closed and locked. A few minutes after I started banging on the gate and yelling, a police officer approached me. "There has been an incident, sir. The station is closed." "What kind of incident?" "My wife is on the platform." "I'm afraid that's all I can tell you, sir. I must now ask you to leave." I had no idea what to do next, and more out of routine than anything else, went back to work. It's amazing how well you can work in a state of shock. It's like an airplane flying on automatic pilot. That's how it is for me, shutting myself off from every possible option and performing the familiar activities of the day. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the department chair walked into my lab. "Mr. Johnson, you are expected in my office. I will cover the rest of the class and deal with the rest of your day." When I got to his office, I was not surprised to find the same police officer I had met at the station. Standing next to him was Eugenia. He asked me to sit down and told me the bad news. Witnesses claimed that some man said an affectionate goodbye to her on the platform. She looked upset after he left. As the express train roared through the station, she calmly turned and stepped off the platform into its path. She didn't stand a chance. The funeral was not lavish. James gave the eulogy. I noticed a couple in the back of the church. 2 people I didn't know. As the casket was being carried out, I approached them to thank them for coming. They tried to leave, but the door was blocked by the casket and the porters. When I held out my hand to thank them for coming, the man burst into tears, and between sobs said how sorry he was. "I'm so sorry," I said. "I know you." He continued sobbing, so his wife spoke up for him. "No, you don't know us, Mr. Johnson. My husband was on the train. He's been acting like that ever since. I told him it was a bad idea, but he said he had to come." I rushed over to the man and hugged him. Patting him on the back, I spoke to him. "It's not your fault, old boy. She just took advantage of your train to do what she wanted to do. There was nothing you could have done, nothing any of us could have done." His wife squeezed my hand. "Thank you," she said, and led her husband away. There were more tears at the graveside, some sincere, others not. Both of my sons were visibly upset. The pastor said what he had to say, though I heard nothing. We all threw our bits of earth on the casket, and one by one people left. A fine drizzle began to fall, and I was left alone, looking at the coffin. "You know, Rick, it wasn't supposed to be like this. I was supposed to be the one lying there while you stood here gloating about Stiff Dick moving into our house. For that matter, I never thought much of the train driver. I guess I was just as selfish as you were at that moment. Don't worry, I'll watch our boys. You know they love you, and I guess in a way I do too. I certainly didn't want it to end this way." I threw the last handful of dirt on the coffin and left. Eugenia was waiting for me at the churchyard gate. She held open the door of the limousine that was to take us home. James and Peter were waiting in the car. "You're going to have to be strong for these two," she said, "and I'll be strong for you." 3 weeks passed before the boys returned to the university. The colleges urged them to do the full term, but I think they wanted to get bogged down in work. I insisted that they communicate with a counselor weekly. When they were gone, I felt like I could give an outlet for my grief. As Eugenia reminded me, I had lost 22 years of my life. I had lost someone I loved and with whom I had once planned to grow old. It was normal to feel the loss. Whenever I cried, she was always there to support me. Of course, this made me love her even more, and within 3 months I asked her to marry me. Mom, Dad, and Ioannis are coming to the wedding. If I were Neville, I wouldn't get distracted. The end. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. So subscribe to my channel and watch the next video.